Hello everyone, in this video we will take a look at the data validation using a list. Here is the same demo workbook we have been using, and we'll use the same one and we will look at the list. First let me go to the data validation and show you the option. So we looked at whole number, decimal. Now the next one is the list. So let me select that, and it's a little bit different. So let me go back to say decimal. So you have data and you have another drop down. So you have this one and then you have minimum and maximum. Now let me switch to list. So the data portion here, this drop down is disabled. So it's no longer applicable to this particular option. And then we have ignore blank, and we have in cell drop down, and then we have the source. So we need to supply a list of values that can be used using this source field. So that's what we'll be looking at. So what we'll do here is, let me enter something like data validation type. That's just a simple heading, and here what I really want to do is bring all these values as a drop down here. So for a data validation type, then I can pick the one I want. So instead of making the user enter a data validation type, we want to provide him a list, and that list is here. This is what we want to do. So in order to do that, first we have to select the cell where we want to apply this particular data validation. So select the cell, then go to data validation, select list, and then for now ignore these two, leave it with the default values, they are checked, but let us focus on the source. So what I want to do here is, or rather what we want to do is, here click this button, and now you have an option here. Select all these values. As you can see, it says $B, $3, $B, $10. So it's representing these values, and click this button here, and you have the reference to that particular list here. Do OK. So now when you do that, look at this. You can enter something. Let's say, for example, you could do Excel if you want to, and hit enter. You get an error because that's not the value that's available on the list. So the user can actually use this little drop down here, can pick something. So that's how you kind of apply data validation using a list. Now let me go back to data validation. So what this means is, let me first, I want to talk about these two check boxes. Let me uncheck the first one, ignore blank. So I unchecked it. So now, let me first check that. Let me go back and show you the behavior. So here, if I delete it, now I selected the cell, but I am not inside the cell. And by that what I mean, let me say this. I selected this J3, double click, I'm inside the cell. I can enter something here like this. If I do the same thing here, if I enter into the cell, as we know, this will throw an error. We try, and if I say, let's say I don't enter anything, and then let's say I leave the cell, see, there's no error. The reason why you don't see an error is because of this checkbox. It says ignore blank. If I uncheck it, look what happens. If I go into the cell and if I leave, then I get this error. It says that the value does not match the data validation restrictions defined for this cell. So let me go back here again. So that's where the checkbox is actually, when you check it, it ignores the blank values. The next one is in cell drop down. That is checked by default, and you see this drop down here, but you see the button. That's what I mean. But if you uncheck this and do OK, see now the little drop down is gone, and there is no way user can tell what is supposed to enter. Let's say he enters 1, it gives an error, it doesn't tell you what value it is expecting, and it will be real confusing for the user. So instead, the best way is to enable this, and for in-cell drop down. Now when it comes to ignore blanks, again, it all depends on the type of project that you're working with on the field. It may be okay to accept blanks, or it may not be okay to accept blanks. So it all depends. So depending on that, whether you check it or uncheck this. Now that's, I guess that covers these two, and there's one more last thing here. Apply these changes to all other cells with the same settings. So let's see what that means. So here what we have, okay, it's all disabled. That means that the in-cell drop down. Let me remove that. So right now there's nothing there. What happened is when I selected this cell and pulled it down like this, it pretty much copied everything from here all the way down, so the validation got cleared. Now let's say we want to apply the list validation for all these cells. Let me color it. Okay, so you want to apply that. I'm going to select all these cells and then do data validation, select the list. For the source, I'm going to select all these, and I'm going to leave them default. Okay, so now all these cells, as you can see, there's a drop down here, right? So all these have a similar data validation. Now let's say if I go to the very first cell and go here, and then let's say you want to make a change here. Let's say you want to say ignore blanks, you want to uncheck that. Now here you have an option, apply these changes to all other cells within the same setting. So if I do this, then the whole set got selected, and this change, which is I unchecked ignore blank, that gets applied to all. But if I do this, it gets only applied to this cell. So depending on your need, make sure you can apply this, and it's easy. You don't have to go to every cell and make the same change, so it will save you some time. So that's it. And I guess there's one more thing. Let's do this. Let me remove all this. Now it's all gone. Now let's do or use a named reference instead of direct reference, where we actually picked the values. By that what I mean is we actually used here, we manually selected these values. So instead what we will do is we will create a named reference, select all these cells. I'll call it data val types, hit enter. So now I have a named reference here to these values. So what I can do now is go to data validation, select list, and here I can say equal to data val types. Okay, see, it was simple. So you can use a named reference and just use the name there, so it's pretty clear. And to make it real friendly, and generally in production or in real time, what people do use is they put a reminder here. I mean, so the input message, it kind of helps. So when a user goes into the cell, you get a little reminder, and you can also customize the error to kind of present a meaningful message to the user. Well, that's it about the list, and definitely we will revisit this when we do or when we apply data validation while working with these sheets. Well, that's it, and I will see you in the next video.